All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful tools we have as educators, the simple question. But we're not just talking about asking questions. We're going to dive into how you can really design your questioning to create genuine stretch and challenge for every single learner in your room. This is going to be good. Let's get into it.
You know the scene, right? You throw a question out there and the same 2 or 3 hands shoot straight up. So the real nut to crack, the thing we're really digging into today, is how do we get past that? How do we make sure every mind in the room is fired up, stretching, and really thinking?
Well, the great news is that the answer isn't some ridiculously complex theory you have to memorize. No, it's actually a really clear, super practical 3-step sequence that you can start using, well, tomorrow.
And here it is. This is our game plan. It's that simple. First, you get everybody thinking. Second, you take their first answer and you probe it. You go a little deeper. And third, you stretch that thinking out to build new connections. It's a fantastic little progression from basic engagement to really deep learning.
Okay, let's get into the weeds with step 1. Involve all learners. Think of this as the launch pad. It is absolutely the foundation. If you don't do this part, the other 2 steps just can't happen. This is all about making sure that thinking is non-negotiable for everyone.
So how do we make that happen? Well, with tools that a lot of us are already using, right? Things like direct questioning, sometimes called cold calling, where you get to choose who answers. Or a good old think, pair, share, which gives everybody a moment to process. And of course, mini whiteboards, where you can see everyone's thoughts all at once.
And look, these strategies are brilliant. They absolutely work. They get learners to tune in, to join the conversation, to put some kind of answer out there. They create that really important buzz of engagement in the room. But, and this is the key insight here, this is not the finish line. Engagement by itself isn't the same as challenge. Getting an answer from a student is just the starting point. The real learning, the real stretch, begins with what you do next. So, let's build on that. This brings us to step 2. Probe the response. This is where we take that first answer we got, and we just refuse to let it sit there on the surface. It's time to start digging into the thinking behind the answer.
So what do we mean by probing questions? Well, they're just simple, targeted follow-ups. They're designed to make a learner justify themselves, explain their reasoning, and add some detail. It's the shift from just accepting a right answer to actually understanding the thinking that got them there.
You know, what's incredible is that the single most effective probing question you can possibly ask is also the simplest. It's just, why? That's it. That one little word immediately demands reasoning. It's so simple, but it's incredibly powerful.
Here's another absolute gem. How do you know? This one is fantastic because it pushes learners to find their evidence. It makes them connect their answer back to something concrete, the text, an experiment, the data. It gets them thinking like a true practitioner.
And finally, this one. Can you explain that further? I love this one because it's such a brilliant open invitation. You're telling the learner, hey, what you said is valuable, and I want to hear more of it. It encourages them to add the detail and nuance themselves.
All right, we've involved everyone. We've probed their initial answer. Now it's time for the final and honestly the most exciting part of the sequence. Step 3, stretch the thinking. This is where we take the conversation to a whole new level and help learners build bigger, more complex webs of knowledge. The technique is often just called stretch it, and that's a perfect name for it because that's exactly what these prompts do. They aren't just asking for more detail on the same point. They're asking the learner to build a bridge from their idea to another concept, to look at it from a totally different angle, to see the bigger picture. And the prompts you can use are so practical. You could ask another student to build on that idea, which gets them collaborating. You can ask, is there another way to approach this? Which encourages creative problem solving. And my personal favorite, how does this connect to what we learned last week? That one is pure gold. It's about weaving all these threads of learning together into a strong fabric of understanding.
Okay, so the theory is all well and good, but what does this actually look like when the pressure's on in a real classroom? Let's walk through a quick example to see how this whole 3-step dance works in practice.
So it all starts here with step 1. The teacher uses a cold call to get everyone on their toes and involves a specific learner. The question is pretty standard. What was the main cause of the conflict? A nice, clear starting point. And we get a very standard one-word answer, economics. Now let's be honest, many of us might just tick that off as correct and move on. But if we do that, we've just missed a huge opportunity for real learning.
But this teacher doesn't stop there. They immediately deploy step 2, the probe. They ask, how do you know it was economics?
Notice, they're not questioning the answer, they're asking for the thinking behind it.
And bam! Look at the difference in that response. The student's thinking is instantly more sophisticated. They aren't just remembering a fact, they're citing their evidence. Because the documents we read focused on trade disputes. So much better.
But hold on, we're not done yet. Here comes the magic. Step 3, the stretch. The teacher links this specific answer to past learning, asking, how does that connect to the political theories we studied last week? And that is where the deep learning really takes root, connecting economics to politics, this week to last week. That's the good stuff.
So as we wrap all this up, I want to land on the single most important idea here. It's really a shift in how we think about what a student's answer even means in the first place.
And this is it right here. This is the whole philosophy. We have to retrain our brains as educators. The answer a student gives you is not the finish line. It's the starting block. The real teaching, the real challenge, the real fun is everything that happens after you get that first response.
So, I'll leave you with a final thought to take away. As you're planning your next session, don't just think about what questions you're going to ask. Think about how you're going to probe them, and even more importantly, how you're going to stretch them. So what question will you stretch tomorrow?